Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an action, comedy film from 2016, titled Luck Key. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. On a rainy night, while a catchy tune plays on the radio, professional hitman Choi Hyung-wook murders a man and hides him in the trunk of his car. The victim's suitcase is abandoned in the middle of the street, only to be taken by a mysterious person right after the car drives away. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in the same neighborhood, poor actor Yoon Jae-sung burns all his photographs and gets ready to hang himself, feeling like he has nothing left to live for and nobody will notice he's gone. However, he's interrupted by his landlady, who is furious about him owing her rent money, the way he lives like a pig, and how much he smells because he hasn't bathed in a while. After finding a debt notice from his health insurance that he puts away in his pocket, Jae-sung decides he should at least kill himself in a clean state and goes to a public bathhouse, where he sees Hyung-wook washing next to him and notices his very expensive watch. Suddenly, Hyung-wook slips on some soap and falls unconscious when his head hits the floor, losing his locker key as he falls. Thinking about the very expensive things this rich man may keep in his locker, Jae-sung takes advantage of the situation and changes his key with Hyung-wook's. When paramedic Kang Ri-na comes to take Hyung-wook away, they take Jae-sung's things with them, and as soon as they're gone, Jae-sung gets to open Hyung-wook's locker and be amazed by its contents. Deciding he deserves at least one last day of luxury before killing himself, Jae-sung puts on Hyung-wook's suit and finds his car, which he drives around town to visit his landlady and every shop he owes money to in order to pay his debts with the money he's stolen. He even visits a girl from the theater he used to work at, and after he pays back the money she had lent him, she tells him she's getting married soon, which breaks his heart. Jae-sung realizes using Hyung-wook's things won't magically fix his life and puts it all back in a bag that he takes to the hospital. The plan is to exchange his stuff for Hyung-wook's while he's sleeping, but the man wakes up right before he can do anything. It turns out Hyung-wook is now an amnesiac and is calling himself Jae-sung because that's the name they found on the health insurance letter, but it doesn't sound right to him. He asks the real Jae-sung if he knows him, but Jae-sung panics and leaves with the bag. Now that he's feeling better, Hyung-wook is allowed to leave the hospital, except he only has $2 under Jae-sung's name and his health insurance has expired, so he can't pay the bill. When Ri-na comes to check on him, he asks her if she can lend him the money and he can pay her back later when he finds his home by following the address on the letter. Ri-na is a bit hesitant but accepts, paying for everything before driving him back to his apartment. On the way there, they're surprised to see that the letter says he's 32 years old, because he looks much older than that. When they make it to his place, Ri-na realizes he can't pay her back, but she takes pity on him when they find the burnt photos and the rope that indicate he almost killed himself and tells him not to worry about paying before she goes back to her job. Hyung-wook wants to get his life back together, so he starts by cleaning and organizing the whole apartment. Then he writes down the few things he's learned about himself before going around the building to talk to the neighbors, but not a single one of them want to talk to him when they hear he's the guy from the rooftop loft. One of the neighbors is a violent man that had been mistreating his wife, so when Hyung-wook approaches him with his questions, he thinks he wants to interrogate him so he tries to punch him, but Hyung-wook's muscle memory allows him to defend himself and beat up the man without breaking a sweat. Sometime later, when Ri-na visits him again, she finds him having a coughing fit after he tried to smoke a cigarette. He thought smoking was his thing because he's found many cigarette butts around, but obviously that's not the case. The only things he's learned so far are that he enjoys cleaning and is very good with a knife, two characteristics that give Ri-na an idea. She drags him to her mother's small restaurant and convinces her to hire him, since they've been needing help because her grandmother is not well and her sister should be studying. Hyung-wook accepts the job and the first thing he's told to do is to smile more not to scare off the customers. Meanwhile, Jae-sung realizes that with Hyung-wook being an amnesiac, this is his chance to turn his life around by pretending to be him. He finds his new home's address on the car's GPS and drives there, surprised to find a luxurious apartment in one of the most expensive towers in the city. After finding some uniforms in the closet and deciding Hyung-wook must be a cop, he turns on the TV, only to find there are no channels on, only a security camera stream spying on a beautiful woman, Song Yoon-yo, who is currently doing yoga. Afterward, he spends the day eating, drinking, and sleeping. When he wakes up, he immediately freaks out when he notices Yoon-yo is killing herself on the screen, or at least, that's what he thinks at first. Actually, she's pretending to do so in many different ways before going back to her yoga. Then, Jae-sung searches the house for more food and finds a box full of money, which he uses to order a whole feast for himself. He also decides to grab a bottle of wine from Hyung-wook's collection, only to find a secret room behind the wall when he pulls the right bottle. This room is filled with weapons, fake IDs, phones, and more security cameras that follow Yoon-yo, which makes him believe even more that Hyung-wook is a cop, especially when he finds the notes he has on Yoon-yo. She was the one to go to the police with a pen drive filled with information about the illegal activities of the company she used to work for, so she's now under witness protection. Since Hyung-wook can't protect her now, Jae-sung decides he should do it instead, but to do that he needs to know where she is. Watching her on the screen, she notices the same delivery guy that brought his own food and realizes she lives in the same building as he does, so he starts walking through every floor and ringing every doorbell to find her, But he fails, not noticing he accidentally missed a door at the end of a hallway. However, when he returns to his apartment, he notices on the TV that her exercising matches the noises he's hearing from the ceiling. This means Yoonyo lives exactly above him. He goes to see her and introduce himself under the excuse neighbors should know each other, but after apologizing for the noise, she simply closes the door on his face. Back in the restaurant, Hyung-wook is a success. His skills with the knife allow him to make food with the most beautiful presentation, and that attracts a whole new wave of clients to their business. One evening, when turning a new page on the calendar, he discovers there's an appointment made on the 25th and decides to go to see if he can learn more about himself. This appointment turns out to be meeting with some producers that pick up a bunch of actors in their van to act as extras in their shows. Hyung-wook tries his best at various roles, but he is awful at all of them. At the end of day, after getting paid, he can't help noticing that his name on the producer's paperwork has an old address listed, which is Jae-sung's father's barbershop. He goes to visit the man only to hear him complain about what a loser his son is, although the calendar on the wall reveals he's been praying for his success. So Hyung-wook leaves without saying anything to him but also deciding he would become a good actor to make his father proud. In the meantime, Jae-sung starts following Yoonyo around, trying to make it seem like they come across each other by accident. One day, when she's visiting her mother at the hospital, he notices one of the men from her old company is following her, so Jae-sung grabs her and takes her to his car, where she can hide safely thanks to the tinted windows, but she continues to be wary of him. When Thursday comes, Jae-sung sees her packing her things and taking the suitcase with her to the middle of the street, as if she was waiting for someone, but nobody comes. From then on, both Jae-sung and Hyung-wook start working hard on their new lives. While still working at the restaurant, Hyung-wook trains to become a better actor using various techniques like reading about method acting, practicing better pronunciation, and a rigorous exercising regime. Jae-sung continues to follow Yoonyo around and pretending to bump into her by accident, slowly gaining her trust and friendship. Eventually they even start hanging out together, and to help her have fun without leaving the building and putting herself in danger, he sends her gifts in the form of puzzles and even uses a projector to play movies under the darkness of the building's staircase. The two of them slowly begin falling in love with each other, but Jae-sung still doesn't understand why every Thursday she stands in the middle of the street with her suitcase, waiting for someone that doesn't come. Hyung-wook gets a role as an extra in a gangster-themed TV show as the bodyguard of a gang leader, played by a very rude, selfish, and mean famous actor. He takes his role too seriously and shows off his martial arts skills by protecting the leader from all the attackers, which is a big deviation from the script because obviously the star is the one that should beat up the bad guys. They reshoot the scene to follow the script correctly, but this time, the director isn't mad at Hyung-wook. He thinks his martial arts skills are fantastic and gives him the role of the gang leader's right hand. When the time comes for him to finally say his first line on the screen, he butchers it and only says a few words, but the director loves it and keeps it, thinking it adds a certain impact to the character. The director's praise for Hyung-wook makes the main star incredibly jealous. Hyung-wook's action scenes make him extremely popular among the public, getting him attention from fans on the streets and the restaurant, which causes Ri-na to decide to become his agent. His popularity reaches such a stage that the writers decide to make his role bigger and his character starts having an affair with the leader's girlfriend, making the main actor even more jealous. When the day for his character to die comes, the gang leader hits him for real instead of pretending as an actor, but Hyung-wook uses it in his favor to make the scene more realistic. The character is so incredibly popular, however, that the writers bring him back from death and make him the gang leader in the next episode. One night, Jae-sung hears one of Hyung-wook's many phones ring and after some hesitation, decides to pick up the call, which surprises the man on the other end of the line because Hyung-wook's rules say he should leave a message. The voice is a client of Hyung-wook's that wants to know why Yoonyo's case isn't closed yet, so when he asks him to discuss this in person, Jae-sung accepts. Covering his face with a face mask, sunglasses, and a cap, Jae-sung meets with employees of Yoonyo's old company at an abandoned building. The men want to know why Yoonyo isn't dead yet and even offer more money to get it done, making Jae-sung finally understand that Hyung-wook isn't a cop, he is a hitman. Taking the bag with the extra money, Jae-sung tells them he'll contact them later and rushes out of the building, which looks suspicious to the company's boss and causes him to send his men to follow him and find out where he's hiding Yoonyo. Jae-sung tries following Hyung-wook to talk to him about this problem, but when he finally approaches him, he notices he's still an amnesiac and it would be pointless to try anything, so he simply pretends to be a fan wanting an autograph before leaving. When going back to work, Hyung-wook discovers he isn't as good at shooting romantic scenes as he is with action scenes, causing the director to get very frustrated with him. He doesn't remember experiencing any kind of love in his life, but he's still determined to get rid of his awkwardness towards the subject, so he asks Ri-na to help him by kissing him. At first, she refuses, but after he shows gratitude for all the ways she's already helped him and tells her she's beautiful, she decides to help him with this as well. They end up making out in the street, and all the emotions he feels while kissing her, Hyung-wook later uses in the scene, earning the director's approval. When Ri-na sees the kiss on TV, she gets very jealous, so Hyung-wook tries to distract her by taking her and her family on a picnic. Another Thursday comes and Yoon Yo goes out to the street to wait again, but this time, she's approached by Jae Sung, who tells her the man she's waiting for won't come, and even if he did, he would put her in danger. To make her believe his words, he tells her he's a cop that has been assigned to protect her, but he now cares about her and cannot watch from afar any longer. Jae Sung hugs Yoon Yo, causing the spying company men that had hired Hyung Wook to think they're having an affair, so their boss asks them to hire someone else to take care of both. Since the men can't decide who the next best hitman is, they decide to call all 4 of them and hire whoever arrives first. What they don't know, however, is that all those hitmen they've heard about are just Hyung Wook's other names, and they're calling his many different phones that he keeps in the apartment. Hyung Wook, Ri-na, and her family have a great time together on the picnic, and don't return home until night falls. It's started to rain and the radio is playing the same catchy tune from the beginning as Ri-na stops the van in front of a red light at the same spot Hyung Wook had heard that song many weeks ago. This combination of factors finally trigger his mind into remembering his old life, so after saying his goodbyes to Ri-na, he returns to his old apartment, discovering all the messages on his phones requesting him to kill Yoon Yo and Jae Sung, who Hyung Wook quickly remembers as the guy from the bathhouse and the hospital. On the security cameras, he sees Jae Sung take Yoon Yo away, so Hyung Wook changes into his old clothes, reclaims his car, and follows them into an apartment Jae Sung's recently rented to hide away from him and the company men. Jae Sung tries to keep him out of their place, but Hyung Wook kicks him off and scolds Yoon Yo for having left the apartment, which isn't what they had agreed on. When Yoon Yo points out she didn't know what to do because he never showed up, Hyung Wook explains what happened to him before correcting Jae Sung's accusations of being a hitman. Hyung Wook isn't an actual assassin, he just pretends to kill his victims, while in reality, the assassination is all an act made with fake weapons and fake blood, which explains why Yoon Yo had been practicing how to die while doing yoga. What Hyung Wook actually does is share the money he's been paid for these assassinations and shares it with the victims, providing them fake documents and a way to escape and get a new life away from the people that wants them dead. The mysterious person from that rainy night that took the suitcase had been the victim himself getting ready to leave, and this is why Yoon Yo would wait with a suitcase as well. Hyung Wook thinks they should go ahead with the plan and get Yoon Yo out of the country. When she mentions she wants Jae Sung to come with her, he tells him he shouldn't go because he's a good-for-nothing that nobody will miss. This angers Hyung Wook, who tells Jae Sung he's been enjoying having his life because it's been a dream he could have never gotten on his own, and reminds him his father still believes in him. Thinking of this dream life he's always wanted and now he can have, Hyung Wook decides to make a plan so all 3 of them can disappear under new identities. He calls the company men and asks them to meet them at an abandoned building, where the 3 of them will be faking their deaths. Before going there, however, Hyung Wook wishes goodbye to Ri-na, telling her he's quitting and they can't be friends anymore for her own safety. This hurts her deeply, but it's not enough to stop her from following Hyung Wook when he leaves the apartment in order to find out why he's suddenly acting like this. At the abandoned building, the company men watch Jae Sung stab Yoon Yo and hide her body behind a piece of wall before he takes a fake pen drive she had in her pocket and tosses it at them, calling their deal over. At that moment, Hyung Wook arrives, pretending to be one of the 4 hired hitmen, and begins fighting Jae Sung using both martial arts and knives. Their fight is pretty equal, and they even manage to do some more fake stabbing, but they're suddenly interrupted by Ri-na, who demands an explanation. Hyung Wook pretends he doesn't know her and insults her to get her to go away, but this only makes her angrier. As she keeps on scolding him for his words, Hyung Wook tells Jae Sung to carry on the plan, so Jae Sung goes after him with a knife and Hyung Wook pretends to save Ri-na by getting between her and the weapon. Now they are together on the right spot, Yoon Yo presses a button on a special remote control and drops a factory container on top of them, making it seem as if they have been crushed when actually the container is hollow and they're safely standing inside of it. To make it all more believable, they release a stream of fake blood that comes out from under the container. This is enough for the company men to believe they're dead, and they leave with the pen drive, thinking it's the real one. Relieved to see each other alive, Jae Sung and Yoon Yo hug and finally kiss while Hyung Wook follows a very upset Ri-na out of the building. He apologizes for having shocked her like this and reveals his real age as 45, which makes him quite older than her. Ri-na freaks out when hearing this, but now understands better why he thought they couldn't be together. That's a talk for later though, because right now, she needs to take him somewhere important. Ri-na drives Hyung Wook to an amusement park where his TV show is being recorded. Hyung Wook is supposed to shoot a scene where his character breaks up with his girlfriend for the sake of her safety, but he changes the script and tells her he wants to leave his old life behind and be with her instead, all the while glancing at Ri-na so she can see he means the speech to be for her. This makes her incredibly happy, and as she nods to let him know she accepts his feelings, the director decides he likes this version of the scene better and decides to keep it. Afterward, Hyung Wook goes back to working at the restaurant, where he's been accepted as part of the family. He also continues to work as an actor, and when the time comes for him to fight an enemy in the story, he's delighted to learn it'll be Jae Sung, so now they can work together as a team. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.